I'm currently going through the Great Adventure Bible timeline. Prior to this, I've never really had any aspiration to read the Bible for no particular reason. I read the Bible on a regular basis. I've been doing the daily readings for, let's see here, I think I started this around 2019. But aside from that, I never really was like, okay, I'm gonna open up page one and read, cover to cover. I've never had that. Why? I don't know. Maybe intimidation, which the Bible can be pretty intimidating. What if I don't understand what I'm reading? Which ultimately led me to wanting to do it because I want to have full context of what's happening throughout the story of salvation history. So right as of making this video, I think I'm in week 6 or session 6, which is a weekly thing. It's a 6-month program. And there was one of the periods of salvation history that really stood out to me today, and it was kind of the inspiration for today's talk while I walk. And it was the period of conquest in Judges. So the period of conquest in Judges are the books of Joshua, Judges, and Ruth, and then a little bit of 1 Samuel. And there's something particular that happens that I noticed, and it actually tied into a lot of the work that we do with our clients. During this period of conquest in Judges, the nation of Israel, they go through 7 cycles of sin, and God sends them 12 judges, and these judges are supposed to guide the people as they've made their way through the desert and now into the promised land of Canaan. So they're kind of making this whole journey. And so it's these 7 cycles of sin. So if you're not familiar with it, here's what's kind of going on. Moses doesn't get to enter the promised land. Eventually he dies. Joshua takes up the helm and he begins to lead the people into the land of Canaan. And eventually the people start to turn back to their old ways. They start to worship pagan idols, sacrifice, and all these things. And obviously it does not sit well with God. And as a result of that, he allows them to live out their punishment. And then they realize that they've sinned against God, and they confess their sins, and they turn back. All is well. And then the moment that God saves them, he sends them a judge. The moment he saves them and sends them a judge, they literally, like the next verse is, and they turned back and worshiped other gods. And it was just kind of unbelievable, right? We look at these stories and we're like, why would they do that? But then if we look at our lives today, we do the exact same thing. When it comes to our health, our wealth, our relationships, you name it. And so those 7 cycles really stood out to me. And this is one of the key things that we help the men in our program get clear on. And that's this concept that we've developed called the toxic cycle. And each and every one of us has our own toxic cycle. You have one, I have one. There's one core toxic cycle that you continually deal with throughout your whole life until you figure out what's the cause and how do you overcome it. But then within that toxic cycle, you've got many other different types of cycles. So in the context of the toxic cycle of sin that the nation of Israel was going through, we have one for our lives. And here's where what we help the guys get clear on. This is one of the key components of our bucketing system. And it's the 3rd bucket, the bucket of conviction. Once we present them with the bucket of conviction, they are convicted with the truth, and that truth is that you are addicted to your sin, that you are addicted to this one specific thing that you don't know why you can't overcome this thing, overcome this addiction. And for many guys, it's addiction to money, it's addiction to work, it's addiction to porn, it's addiction to food, it's whatever that is. We all have our own. And the key, the key piece that really helps these guys break through is just getting clear admit that you are addicted to that sin and admit that you like it. Admit that you like it and that you enjoy binge eating, just admit those things. The reason why that's important is because once you admit that, you now take ownership of that problem. You take ownership of that addiction, and now we can put something together to overcome that. And so the reason why the nation of Israel continued to turn back to pagan worship, sacrificing to false gods and whatnot, was because they were still tied to that lifestyle. You see, up until that point when Israel came out and they eventually went into the desert, and the reason why they kept turning back, like that time period from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then their exile into Egypt was 400 years. They had been in Egypt for 400 years, and they were accustomed to their ways, to polytheism, etc. And so just think about that. That is a hard pattern. That is a hard cycle to break, 400-year history. And so throughout all of salvation history, this is something we continue to struggle with, is always kind of turning back and going to our previous way of life. And so if you ever find yourself, maybe you do a weight loss challenge, or you do some kind of strength training challenge of some sort, and you build a little bit of discipline, and you see some progress, you lose some weight, but then you gain it back, is because you're still tied to your past lifestyle. But once you get clear and admit that you're addicted to the junk food or whatever that is, now you can take action on that and make it a part of your lifestyle to where it's not restriction, right? We talked about this in a past episode on the whole set point weight theory, where when you lose something, right, if you lose a lot of weight at one time, your brain will kind of try to get you to go back and gain that weight back because of homeostasis. And so if you find yourself, you finish a weight loss challenge, like I did 75 hard back in spring of 2021. And I did that because I needed to just kind of revamp things. I needed something that I could comply to. I needed something that would keep me accountable to myself. And it was very easy, the moment that I did 75 hard, it was very easy for you to be tempted to go right back to the things the habits that I had built and I lost. And it was easy, very tempting for me to go back to that way. The whole point here is, if you're stuck in a specific toxic cycle of sin, and by sin, I mean that addiction that you're going through, admit that you enjoy that. Admit that you enjoy doing whatever it is that you're doing. So if you want to see progress once and for all, and no longer revert to your past lifestyle, it's essential that you get clear and admit that you love your addiction. If this video helped you out, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more Busy Dad strength training tips. And if you need more help on how to build a stronger and more capable body so you can do more of what you enjoy, click the link in the description section and download your free 4-week strength program.